Hello, everyone. Today we'll talk about the laws of kilkul, of causing damage, and we'll see what's the difference between that and what we discussed yesterday about psik resha and act of labor that you do not need the result that is achieved by it. The example we gave, like digging a hole, but not in order to do anything with the hole, but rather because you need the dirt. And so the last one, which I think is the most lenient of the different principles, is the one of kilkul, causing damage or destruction. And the best example really is peeling an orange. Unless you are planning on preserving them with sugar and the way that they do all kinds of sweets, you are allowed to cut the peels on Shabbat and not worry about it. And because it becomes muktzah by putting it on the table, you're allowed to remove it from the table because nobody wants to see peels on the table for the next meal. So the Mishnah in Shabbat, page 105b, brings a very interesting twist to a kilkul that might be actually correcting something or making something better. So the Mishnah, the Hebrew commas and periods aren't very clear here, but I think in English they managed to do a good job. So what's in bold is the actual words, and then they put connecting words in between. So one who rends his garment in his anger or in anguish over his dead relative is exempt, meaning that you're not chayav for tearing on Shabbat, because we're not tearing it in order to fix the garment. In fact, if it's a relative like a father or mother, you're never allowed to mend the clothing. You have to either throw it in the garbage or something else. Um, but for other relatives, you're allowed to mend it afterwards. But this is just the idea that I'm so angry and I'm so upset about the death, and so I'm tearing my garments. And of course, Hamel Kalkel Menat Laken, to destroy something in order to fix it, like tailor would make a small tear in order to make it more perfect, is chayav, and then the shiur, the measurement, is based on what you're doing with it. So there's a argument in the Gemara what exactly is the problem with this Korea, and they wanted to suggest that maybe because I'm appeasing my mind or my troubled soul by doing this, maybe I'm considered that I'm as if correcting it or making it better. So Maimonides and Ravid have a very small discussion about the law of anger. So I skipped the Hebrew because it's not parallel between the Hebrew and the English. So anger is also an exceptionally bad quality. It is fitting and proper that one move away from it and adopt the opposite extreme. There's only one other midah that Maimonides says that about, that you should go to the other extreme of being as far away from anger as possible. He should school himself not to become angry even when it is fitting to be angry. If he should wish to arouse fear in his children and household or within the community, if he is a communal leader and wishes to be angry at them and to motivate them to return to the proper path, he should present an angry front to them to punish them, but not be truly angry inside. And so from this, it seems that sometimes there is place for anger, and that it would go according to Rabbi Avin and the Gemara, where he suggests that this is a metaken, that this is a correction, and therefore you should still be chayav. So one last source of Maimonides is in the laws of kings. How is that related to Shabbat? It's not. But in the laws of kings in chapter 6, Maimonides talks about how we wage war against the enemies. And in the end of Parshat Shoftim, very befitting for Tu B'Shvat today, it says that you are not allowed to cut down a fruit tree. And that's an actual prohibition. And I was told that there's a house in Brooklyn that can't be sold because there's a fruit tree in the front and it's still giving fruit. And we're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to uproot it because it's a sur d'oraita. But Maimonides says that this law of not cutting down a fruit tree extends to other things as well. Not this prohibition does not apply to trees only. Rather, anyone who breaks utensils, tears garments, destroys buildings, stops up a spring, or ruins food with a destructive intent transgresses the command "do not destroy," which in Hebrew, instead of saying "lo tashchit," which is how it's written in Devarim, we say "bal tashchit." I'm not really sure why we changed that, but that is a pretty famous command. And so Rabbi Shaviv in Gush Etzion, Yeshivat Gush, explained that's why Rama and Ravid are arguing, meaning if we are tearing the garment and it's now appeasing me, and so now I'm calm, maybe that will be considered metaken, not of the garment, obviously, but of me. And so we aren't really considered utensils. It will be silly to say that we are inanimate objects when we are humans, but that's where the background for all of this discussion is. So back to Rav Melamed. The Torah only prohibits melachot whose purposes are constructive, like the melechet machshevet of the Mishkan, the thoughtful, creative labor. Accordingly, one who performs a melacha in a destructive or ruinous manner, derech kilkul, as it's known, has not transgressed a Torah prohibition, but only a rabbinic prohibition. This is the meaning of the sage's statement, all who destroy are exempt. Whenever the term patur, exempt, is used in Masechet Shabbat, it means usually that one who performs the action is exempt from the punishment mentioned in the Torah, but the act remains forbidden rabbinically, and if it was done in a way that is inappropriate, they would give what's called makat mardut, which is not the lashes of the Torah, but some kind of uh, physical punishment in order for people to stay away from doing that. Thus, one who tears in order to sow transgresses a Torah prohibition, whereas one who tears without the intention of sowing transgresses a rabbinic prohibition. One who dismantles a house or tool in order to refurbish it transgresses the Torah prohibition, while one who dismantles something without intending to build it transgresses a rabbinic prohibition. And basically, that goes back to what we said about Maimonides, where he says that because kas is something that you shouldn't do even on a regular day, then that's why it was prohibited, but not the Shabbat prohibition, but just the idea that you are considered, at least according to the Zohar. He quotes Chachamim, but we could not find the actual source in the Talmud, so Rav Shaviv brought the quote from the Zohar, where a person who's angry and does things in anger is considered as if they are worshiping idols, because they're basically saying, my anger, my emotions are more important than the welfare of other people around me. They're making themselves like a god. One who erases letters in order to write others in their place is transgresses a Torah prohibition, while one who erases without that intent transgresses a rabbinic prohibition. And we're not going to go through all the examples, but those are all the examples that basically discuss the idea of the difference. And so to sum it all up, the difference between melacha she'ena tzucha gufa is that you're actually doing the melacha, but something that's kilkul is not. You cannot call it melechet machshevet, and the automatic response that we saw in Masechet Shabbat of tearing for the dead is patur, and just to again, it's not recommended. It's better to be able to control those emotions. But if somebody wasn't able to, we're not going to punish them more than they already are feeling bad for whatever bad news they heard on Shabbat. And actually, I'll just end that somebody asked me last night what will be on Shabbat based on certain people's threats, and I said, hopefully nobody will tell me about it because I don't answer the phone or turn on the TV on Shabbat. So again, I think that that's one of the ways to be able. The reason why I'm bringing it in the recording is to understand that our observance of Shabbat doesn't only include not doing the actual melacha. It's also the spiritual surroundings that we don't want to be able to hear bad news on Shabbat, and if somebody tells us, then whatever. But but we should not try to find out bad news in any way possible. And so we'll stop here.